Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Artist Insight, continuing with our theme of celebrating pride as part of our Live Free, Love Fierce series. Today we have Barry, who is one of our artists that will be showing some work with us this week, and we'll learn more about that. But we just want to welcome you, Barry, and thank you for joining us. And if you mind just quickly introducing yourself to everyone.
Thanks, Larry. Happy Pride, everybody. I'm Barry Levey. I'm excited to be here and to be sharing a radio play that I wrote tomorrow night at 8 that the Y co-produced for the Pride 365 series this year. I'm a playwright who's had the good fortune to work with the Y before. Some people, tens of people may remember me from my one-man show Hoaxacost that we did at the Y 2 summers ago.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your time performing with the Y previously? I know you mentioned Hoaxacost, but just let us a little more about that.
Yeah, it's not what it sounds like. It's a show, a satire about Holocaust denial, basically poking holes in all the deniers' arguments, and it's sort of a round the world journey where the narrator, and my one and only acting gig, myself, goes around the world interviewing these real Holocaust deniers, and it's a darkly funny, I hope, piece that ends on a pretty dark note. It was great working. I loved working with everybody at the Y, and yeah, it was a great experience.
I remember we loved having you, and for the entirety of your run, every day it was who's going to Hoaxacost, who's going to Hoaxacost, and everyone was coordinating trying to go see it because the staff, the members, everyone was speaking really highly of it. So we were really glad to get to have you.
That's
and we're really
awesome.
glad
Thank
that you
you.
got to be able to do it. Yeah. When David first mentioned bringing you as a part of our Pride series, it was really exciting to kind of get to see what you would reimagine and do and work with going into this new piece. And I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about what we're going to see tomorrow night, and kind of give us some context as to who these characters are that we're going to be exploring tomorrow night.
Yeah. It's a play called Let Me Call You Sweetheart. Some people, I've been working on it since like 2014, 2015, and back then it went by the title Maimed. So it's had a couple readings that people may have seen under that title and workshops. The title has changed to hopefully reflect that it's a little bit more of a comedy. Maimed was a pun on the character Mame from the great Jerry Herman musical Mame and the movie and the book. But some people didn't know what Mame was, and to other people, maimed, if you just hear it, it kind of sounds like wounded or ruined, or it sounds like it's going to be sort of a war drama. So, and I think I learned from my lesson from Hoaxacost that titles are really important. So I took that lesson and changed the title this time. And it is a play. It's a comedy again, like Hoaxacost, probably on the darker end of the comedy spectrum. But it's about the relationship between a woman and her nephew, and really kind of about the lies and tall tales they tell to each other or about each other that end up shaping their lives. In some ways, it's about a boy sort of growing up and realizing that his aunt is mentally ill and not really having the tools to respond to that in a healthy way. But that's sort of interspliced with a healthy amount of comedy derived from sort of splicing some true life events with the DNA of Mame, the musical, which was a big inspiration in writing about sort of a larger than life aunt and her nephew.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That sounds really exciting. I'm excited to see it tomorrow, or hear it tomorrow as a radio play structure that we've got going on.
Right. You may see me for the opening seconds as I welcome everybody live on video, but then we're going to audio only, radio play. So make sure you've got good headphones or AirPods or whatever you need.
Perfect. You mentioned a bit about Maimed, the musical, but you also mentioned some other inspirations. Can you kind of speak to, as you were creating this, what was your main source of inspiration? And it sounds like maybe there were two pools of things. Was it a combination? Was one kind of your starting point? And just kind of, can you speak to those a little bit?
Yeah. Great question. I think so. I think I always knew. Yeah, you're right. There's two main threads. There's sort of a real life inspiration, and then a sort of a wanting to use a sort of delve into the world of Mame and reinvent it for
Mm,
um, or reinvent it somehow. And I think it started. I mean, it started in one more of the biographical vein. I think I always knew I wanted to write about my aunt since she passed away, which would have been around my graduation from high school.
okay.
And it just kind of took me 20 years to figure out how I was going to do it. And that was when I had the inspiration to sort of splice the DNA of that story onto with the DNA of Mame. And I should stop for anyone. Maybe I should stop for anyone who doesn't know what Mame is. It's a Jerry Herman musical, the same guy who did Hello Dolly. And it's sort of about this outrageous, larger than life aunt raising her very square nephew. Um, and it started as a book and a play, and later it was a movie. And it's sort of a legendary vehicle for a diva, a lot like Hello Dolly. Like Rosalind Russell was in the play, and Angela Lansbury and B. Arthur were in the musical, and I think Lucille Ball ended up doing the movie version. So, um,
Oh,
and there's
wow.
something like deeply. I think the reason it's part of the Pride Festival is there's something just deeply queer about Mame.
Great.
Just about the
Yeah.
whole this boy awed by this diva of an aunt. She's like this impossibly tough dame who takes charge of his development in place of his really lame family. And uh, I don't remember exactly how or why I had the inspiration to use Mame to tell the story of my aunt. But I mean, I'm a show tune queen, so a name is never far away on my shuffle. So it could have been any number of times a song from Mame came out. But at some point in 2014 or so, um, it just sort of clicked that, what if I try to tell my aunt story through the structure of Mame? And yeah, she's not, it's weird. There's not a ton of similarities between my aunt and the character of Mame. I mean, on a good day, my aunt could probably be called eccentric, so that
Okay.
matches. In Mame, the adventures that they go on are very big, large in life adventures, and in real life, my adventures with my aunt were smaller adventures, like going to see Sesame Street on ice, or your typical typical family adventures, outings like that. I think what are other similarities with her and Mame? Like Mame, she had a mysterious relationship with work, which she didn't seem to
Mhm.
do, and that perplexed me. She had a mysterious relationship with people. She didn't seem to know anyone outside of us.
Okay.
And but I think I don't know. I just remember when I had this sort of idea, like maybe there's something there. Maybe that's the way I can attack the story. I sat down to finally read the book that the musical Mame was based on. Sorry, sirens.
No
Um,
worries.
uh, we're live. Um,
Yes, we are live.
when I read the book, I just sort of realized, you know, in my experience, right, eccentric ants like this can be real, but they're not as benign as it
Yeah.
came off in the book. And
Yeah.
people this eccentric can also have some demons. And growing up with an Aunt Mame has a dark side, and that's when the play really started coming together in my head. Was I realized I'm sort of writing about what's the reality of growing up with an Auntie Mame.
Yeah. I'm curious, as you alluded to a little bit of that inherently, that there's something wonderfully queer about it. And knowing that this is kind of LGBT inclusive programming has been something huge for the Y for a long time. But this past year, we're really trying to focus, target, and give a platform and voice for queer artists to tell queer stories, whatever that means to them, however that means they want to do it. And I was curious if you could kind of just speak to kind of maybe something that's of the importance or the joy that might come from getting to share a work like this in a time like Pride Month, and of course understanding that we don't get to celebrate it in the way we normally would, being still in this kind of lockdown space. Just I'm curious how that what that means to you, still getting to find a way to share this story and share it with an audience in this time that we're still trying to say, yes, we can't go outside, and yes, we understand those realities, but we are still here and we are still proud and we're still communicating as artists and sharing our work.
I don't know if I can say it better than you just did, but yeah, I mean, yes, it's hugely important, and it feels so good. Uh, I have a colleague who introduced me to the phrase just sort of being in community with each other,
Mm.
and the fact this feels like an amazing way to be in community with the, my theater community that I haven't been with in a long time, the gay community that's been in isolation, feels far away,
Mm.
and to get to it. It's hard to picture, the stream premiering tomorrow night and not getting to be in the room full of people and hearing people's reactions and seeing people engage, which is sort of the biggest thrill.
Mm.
But just knowing that people are out there and watching and tuning in and getting to share this kind of queer story during Pride Month, and also just to celebrate, finally feel like celebrate my aunt, and which I think is a big piece of this play, and to celebrate family and celebrate Pride. It's very meaningful to get to do that right now.
Well, we are excited to celebrate with you tomorrow night. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about the shift from what you were envisioning for like you mentioned, an in-person, we were going to be in the room and see it, and now we're shifting to this kind of like radio play style format. Like, what? Just can you talk to me about that journey for you?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster for sure. A lot of whiplash. I can only imagine for you guys figuring out how to
Yeah.
keep going and turn on a dime. But yeah, for me, like the original plan was to do four, 5 or 6 maybe live performances as part of your live
Yeah.
festival. And I'll be honest, when first I just thought everything shut down, it's just going to get canceled. And then when y'all said, well, it was
Mm.
going digital and offered me a chance to still participate, honestly, I was so terrified I almost sort of bowed out. I just couldn't. Um, I have some skills. The director, Ian Morgan, is a genius and he has many more skills than I do, but I don't think either of us has a ton of film experience, writing it for me or directing it, let alone film, digital video being shot remotely in quarantine.
Yeah.
So I just kind of felt like anything I tried to, and especially for a play that wasn't ever meant to be filmed, right? It's very theatrical.
Sure.
I just worried it's going to fall so flat. Anything I try to half-ass is just going to come out terrible.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't wrap my brain around how I would do it digitally. And then um, more sirens. Uh, but then, then I realized, well, you know what? Maybe I don't know if I should mute myself when this happens. I
No,
hope I'm not
you're
like blowing out anyone's eardrums.
no,
Um,
you're okay.
there's kind of nowhere better for me to go. But uh, so yeah, video was out, and I was on the verge of saying no. But then I sort of this brainstorm that the framing structure of the play is a phone call. That's sort of the framing device of the play is that the aunt and the nephew are on the phone together, and they sort of revisit all of these key moments in their relationship over the course of a phone call. And then I thought, well, that's audio. It's audio only. The whole world of the play is just audio for these two characters. They're just talking
Mhm.
to each other over the phone and just hearing each other's voices. Um, and so there's something about that lends itself to an audio only or radio play version of the story. So um, then the director and I started thinking about it in terms of like, could this work as a radio play, um, to do it virtually and um, distinct from a staged reading where a recorded like a play reading, someone would actually narrate or read the stage directions, which I
Mhm.
didn't want to do. So we tried to figure out, is there a way that we could do this with just sound effects and the actors, kind of like a podcast, um,
Mhm.
that keep it, um, to keep it really active and live and theatrical. And so we started looking at that and realized we could do it. And
Mhm.
um, that presented some challenges. It's still presenting some challenges to our sound designer, who's frantically putting the finishing touches on, like right now. Um,
Uh-huh.
I think she's supposed to turn it in by the time we're done, so I might start talking really, really slow to give her more time. But we had to figure out ways to make things clear, like the play there could be a line where she says, here, take this and hide it. But because we can't see what this is, we have to change the line to, here, take this envelope full of coupons and
Mhm.
hide it,
Be very
just to make some
clear.
things clear and catch things like
Yeah.
that. So we just started working with tweaking some lines, adding some sound effects, and uh, hopefully we'll have it done.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of, I think one of the things that's been the most interesting. I feel like we all have a bit of like a love hate about the things that we've learned from the past 3 months of being in this quarantine structure of like, what are things that we're going to take away that we like, wow, I learned something, or what are the things that it's like, please never tell me to get on a Zoom call again. Like, I don't want to do it. And it's been really interesting to watch the way that different artists are finding different ways to like. I feel like a radio play immediately sounded like something I'm like, oh my gosh, when was the last time someone made a radio play that I wanted to like hear or like tune into in that kind of way? Like I asked just from my own personal experience. So I'm excited the way that you are choosing to face the immediate challenge where you might want to go, no, we're done, we're good, we're not going to do this, and say let's see how this can function and use it in a way that's exciting, and also allows people to experience your art and give them a break from like this screen time that we're all kind of getting a little bit of like too much of recently. You know what I mean? So it's I'm excited. I'm very excited for it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out like the positives of it, because I mean, there are great things that came out of turning it into a radio play that
Mm-hmm.
were beyond my wildest dreams, really. I mean, um, chiefly among them, like the cast we were able to assemble. If this required 5 weeks of rehearsal and 5 or 6 live performances, I'm not sure Carol Kane would have had the availability to in her schedule to do that. I'm sure we would not have had the budget to accommodate her. So, you know, uh, that's certainly a benefit. And also I just love just the why, and this is makes me just really proud to participate. Um, that the whys turn it into a sort of free, like you said, like you mentioned, just getting to bring everyone together and be part of something that's free, that's open, that's bringing people together during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing friends are having listening parties, um, knowing that that we're able to. My theater company is helping co-produce and is pointing people to a fundraiser for the Audre Lorde Project, and to know that we're able to help turn this into an opportunity to help draw attention to and raise funds for queer, Black, Indigenous, people of color, trans people during Pride Month is really important. And just so many there's been so many great things that have come out of needing to make this shift that I'm glad that you sort of made me think about the positives.
You're very welcome. It's and we're excited. It seems even you mentioning the Audre Lorde Project, one of our um, one of our things that we've been wanting to share in this month of celebrating Pride is a reminder of where Pride started. Last year we got to celebrate Stonewall 50, and it's kind of a we celebrated it with this big party, this big celebration with lots of colors and excitement and loud music and things like that. But we were celebrating something that happened 50 years ago that is very reminiscent to some of the things that we're experiencing today in terms of these riots and the protests and things like that. And a reminder that pride and the pride that we get to have and walk around today is it comes from and started from people standing up in a moment of injustice and saying we're not going to take this anymore, and that we are still fighting those fights today. And Audre Lorde, we had a staff member write a really lovely blog post about their journey and things like that, and celebrating these LGBT heroes that some people may not have heard of, and acknowledging the amount of these heroes that we owe so much to today and the freedoms we have to today, are people of color and our Black community, that we're so strong in this fight, and that how we can come alongside them to continue to fight in the journey that still needs to kind of like happen today. So I don't know, do you want to speak a little bit about your relationship to that fund or anything like that, or just so that way our audience knows why we're connecting to that?
Yeah, uh, I don't have a particular relationship with them. I was just really excited for the opportunity to support,
Yeah.
um, trans people of color in New York City at this moment. It's weird. frankly, it's weird to be talking so much about myself and my play at this moment. This is a moment when, trying to do a lot of listening and amplifying of other voices. And so it's strange a little bit. It's a strange moment to be sort of hawking your comedy about you and your Jewish aunt. But um, I, I'm grateful for the opportunity to make this about, something bigger during Pride. I'm grateful that the Y has selected it for Pride, and I'm grateful for an opportunity to get to, um, you know, call people's attention to this organization that's really focusing on the needs of trans people of color right now, and do what I can in that way. Yeah, these are, yeah.
Yeah. It's something I've been thinking about just in terms of talking to you as well in today is like as artists and as we navigate the spaces, sometimes you have to find the mechanism to tell the story. And I feel like even like in the way that you're talking about Maimed and your own personal journey, that like Maimed is the mechanism to tell this story that has a little bit of like this personal biographical things like that. And I feel like this
Hmm.
month with Pride, it's very much something that I know we all at the Y want to find ways to provide mechanisms to just tell people's stories, share their voices, and things like that. Because a lot of people have a lot to say, and finding ways that like we can just elevate that. So we're excited that we get to elevate that with you this week. And before we see if there's any questions from our audience today, I was wondering if you just mind giving a quick plug for your premiere and just reminding everybody at the time where all that information, how they can tune in, and then we can see if there's any questions from the audience.
Yeah, so tomorrow night, 8 p.m., Let Me Call You Sweetheart, the radio play premieres. You can sign up for sign up for the premiere link at the Theater for the 14th Street Y's website. There's a place where you can sign up for to be sent the premiere link for tomorrow night at 8. You can also sign up through the Questing Beast website, which is barrylevey.com. And you can also let's see, it will not be on the Facebook channel, right? It'll be on the Y's YouTube page, but you just have to follow the link that the Y emails you and you'll be all set. And then it'll be live. It'll be available for 4 days after that to stream at your leisure. Or if you love it so much that you want to tell all your friends to give it a listen, it'll be there on the Y's 14th, the Theater 14th Street Y's YouTube page for through the 22nd, I think. And yeah, that's the plug.
Great. I actually I have a question real quick. I'm curious what is the likelihood that after this run of radio play format, do you think that radio play is going to become now a form that you're going to keep using to tell this story, or do you think it might be just a pit stop before you get back into a live setting and things like that?
Gosh, I don't know. I think it works better as a radio play than I expected, but I miss being in a rehearsal room and live people and live actors, and I definitely miss seeing and hearing people react. But then again, I don't get to choose the times we live in, and I think I can see more radio plays versions of it in the future for sure. It would be fun to our sound designer, Megumi Katayama, is doing an amazing job with sound effects, but obviously in the Zoom setting, there's, most of them are digital, and I think she's created several of them herself, but it would be fun to get a chance to return to sort of more of the old Foley artist kind of like radio play things. If there's a way to do it, some live sound effects and things like that, that's always really cool. So yeah.
So would you like?
I see maybe a question came in.
Looks like we might have one. Would you mind answering? How do you have a relationship with Carol Kane? How did that come about and get to be a part of this project?
I see the question. It actually says, "How did you get Carol Kane?" And Larry, let me tell you something. Isn't the question how did Carol Kane get me?
I mean, that's how I would.
How is she lucky enough to be Mary? Let me call you sweetheart for me. No, it's the same question my parents want to know. Like, it hoax like 2 years ago, I was doing a one-man show for like one-person audiences, and are we here with Carol Kane? No, the director, Ian Morgan, had met Carol years ago working on through the playwright Beth Henley, and he just reached out to
Mm.
her agent with this, and she was really excited for an opportunity to get to help celebrate Pride and help raise funds for Modular Project, and she was all about it. So there you have it.
That's awesome. I was recently at a trivia night um, at the Phoenix. I don't know if you've ever been to the Phoenix in the East Village,
Sure.
and they did uh, a mystery theme where they asked questions about um, random things, and the answers were all actors, and they all ended up being in Princess Bride. And just the amount of times that I get to just know that Carol Kane is the answer to a question just brings me a lot of joy. So that's worth sharing.
Yeah, it was a joy. I mean, the time I got to spend recording with her was just, I mean, I will not forget it. She's amazing, amazing artist. And also just, she was very compassionate. She wanted to know a lot about me and my aunt and, uh, very warm, great to work with.
Um, I feel like that's always great to hear when there's people that people know like that, and you're like, all right, tell me the tea. Is she as awesome as in my head as she is, or is it behind the scenes she's a different person?
No, awesome through and through.
Oh, that's amazing. Also, it looks like Julie Rubenberry. It's terrific seeing and listening to you. So just a shout out that people
Oh,
are in you right now in this
that's a
conversation.
shout out for my cousin. Hey, cousin Julie.
I'm curious. Let's see. In I'm curious as you kind of were explaining a little bit about this transition to the radio play. Um, do you feel like that you lost any? Was anything lost by it moving into, or do you feel like it was more like you got to gain certain things? Like it was, or was it kind of a mixture?
I think there's a couple things we're really struggling with, not being clear that we lost. Like there's some business that you take for granted, like stage business that you take for granted is so clear when people can see it, and it's really hard to figure out how to make it clear when people can't see it. There's a scene where they're at an ice show and the nephew stands up because he wants to go, and she pulls him back down, and how do you get that across? There's not really sound effects for tugging on elbow, and if you add too many words like "I'm standing up now," no, you're not. You're sitting down. No, I mean, it's hard to recreate stage business. But there's a lot of stuff about there's a recurring thing about the aunt gives her nephew a thespian pin, which is like a drama club kind of the National Thespian Society, and there's a lot of business through the play about pinning the pin on, taking the pin off, throwing the pin away. It's a symbolic pin, and
Yeah.
getting all of that stuff across is really difficult to figure out. What's some other things that are particularly hard? Costumes. There's all this business in the play about what dress the aunt is wearing, or how it's basically the same dress that she just keeps reaccessorizing. And that's sort of a gag that gets lost, on radio. So there's a lot of things. There's things that get lost, but I think overall, know a lot of the spirit. Like I said, since the whole thing is kind of framed as a phone call anyway, I think there's something in the play that really comes through. I think the heart of the play comes through.
That's awesome. We did get another question from Ben Pesner. How has the rehearsal process been different this time from past experiences?
There's a lot more technical difficulties this year than I usually have in rehearsal. Um, it was it was very fast. I think there's something no one had to worry about getting off book because it's audio only. So, they're right there. I mean, I feel like a couple of weeks of rehearsal time really just about letting the actors get the words in their bones and learn the lines. And there's no staging to do, no lines to memorize. So we were able to do it very quickly. Um, but, there's certain things that were the same of just like, even though we knew we were on a tight time frame and we could just knock it out, just like on your first rehearsal, everyone just kind of wanted to go around the table and just talk and share and introduce each other and talk about their quarantines and that sense of community that's just a part of coming together to make a show. It was there from the first second, even though we were all on Zoom and even though we were on a really tight schedule. So I think that's just part of the magic of theater people and of coming together to make a show in any way, shape, or form.
I love that, and I love the. Um, I could imagine the relief that it also must feel to be able to get past the how's quarantine been? Okay, now let's do something. Because I feel like there's, at least in my social groups, there's been a lot of those moments of kind of just like, I forgot how to be a human for a moment and be able to ask somebody other than like ask people things other than what recipes are you cooking right now? Or like, how are you
Oh,
passing the time?
yeah, Noah, our fantastic actor who acts opposite Carol. I mean, yeah, he basically was like, I'm not sure I'm going to remember how to act. So, let's see what happens because, it's been a long time since everyone got to do their thing. Um, he did remember how to act. He acted brilliantly, by the way. Uh, you'll hear that tomorrow. Um,
Perfect.
yeah, but I can tell you what rooms in his house the internet works better in than others, and same with Carol. And they could, they have also heard these same sirens you all got to hear today. So definitely
Yeah,
an
they did.
interesting rehearsal process.
Well, Barry, that's all the time we have for today. So I just want to say thank you for joining us for this artist insight, and thank you for joining and sharing your work with the overall Pride Festival. Again, can you just give us the name and time for tomorrow night?
Well, first, I just have to, I can't believe that in a Pride edition of this, you had to ask me if I know what the Phoenix is. But uh, I've been meaning to
Just
come back to that.
wondering.
I've also done trivia night at the Phoenix. Um,
We'll have to
uh,
team up next time.
so yeah, the final plug is Let Me Call You Sweetheart, tomorrow night at 8. You can link to it from the theater, the 14th Street Wise homepage, their arts page, and arts and culture,
Yeah.
or from barrylevey.com. You can also sign up for the link there, and it'll be on the 14th Street Wise YouTube channel for the next 4 days or so after Thursday through whatever that is, Sunday.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much,
Awesome.
Barry, and happy Pride.
Happy Pride, everybody. Thanks, Larry.